The wind screamed like a monster. Snowflakes hit her face like sharp little knives. Her hands were purple, and her fingers didn't move anymore. She hugged her pet tighter, a small, furry creature with 3 legs and big eyes. It was shivering in her arms. Just like her, she whispered its name, Luma, but her voice was weak. They were both dying, and she knew it. Her name was Kira, a young alien girl from the planet Volter. She had big green eyes, small horns, and skin like soft silver. When the evacuation started, her people ran to the ships in fear. No one waited for her. They thought she was too weak, too slow. Her father didn't even look back. The storm was stronger now. The ice was everywhere, even inside her clothes. She found a small hole between 2 rocks and crawled in with Luma. The wind was softer inside, but not warm. She held Luma close, tears freezing on her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Even though her pet couldn't understand her words, she closed her eyes, ready to let the cold take her. Luma gave a soft cry. Weak and sad, Kira kissed its head. "If we sleep," she thought, "maybe it won't hurt." But then, something changed. A low thudding sound echoed through the snow. It was too heavy to be an animal, too slow to be a machine. Luma's ears twitched. Kira opened her eyes, blinking through the frost. She thought she saw a shape, a tall shadow moving through the storm. Her heart jumped. Was it a ghost? A dream? She tried to sit up but was too weak. The figure came closer, step by step. She saw metal on his legs, light on his chest, then a face covered by a helmet, glowing with soft blue light. It was a human, tall, strong, wearing a thick suit that fought off the cold. Kira had only heard of humans in stories. Some said they were monsters, others said they were heroes. This one looked like neither. He looked focused. He knelt beside her without saying a word. Luma growled softly, but the man didn't flinch. He pulled out a strange box from his bag and opened it. A small flame appeared, dancing in the wind. Kira gasped, "Fire, real fire." He placed it between them, and warmth spread out like magic. Her eyes filled with tears again, not from pain but from shock. The human gave her a silver pouch. He pointed to his mouth, then to her food. She took it with shaking hands and drank. Sweet and thick, it filled her belly and stopped the shaking. He looked at her gently. He touched her shoulder and nodded. His voice came through the helmet, soft but deep. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the feeling. Then he did something strange. He reached into his bag again and pulled out a soft blanket. He wrapped it around both her and Luma. She stared at him, eyes wide. No one had ever done that for her. Not her father, not her people, but this human. This stranger. Heh! The fire crackled, the wind roared outside, but inside that small cave, there was peace. Kira leaned against the wall, still holding Luma. The human sat beside her, not too close, not too far. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, but her body was too tired. Still, her mind was full. Who was he? Why was he here on this frozen dead planet? Why did he save her? Her people said humans were selfish, but this one had shared his warmth, his food, even his fire. Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe monsters didn't wear helmets and carry heat. Maybe heroes did. As her eyes slowly closed, she saw the human checking the small screen. He looked worried, like he was searching for someone or something. But when he noticed her watching, he smiled under his helmet. Just a small smile, but it was enough. Kira fell asleep that night, not from cold, but from comfort. And for the first time in her short life, she felt safe. But danger still waited outside. And this was only the beginning. When Kira opened her eyes, the fire was still burning. The human sat close to it, watching the flames like they were alive. Luma was curled against her chest, breathing softly. Her body still ached, but the pain was less now. She was warm, not warm like the sun, but warm enough to live. She looked at the human again. His suit was big, made of thick metal and cloth. There were scratches on it, and something red near the arm. Was he hurt? He didn't move much, just sat with his back against the wall. The blue light from his helmet flickered now and then, like it was running low. Kira didn't speak, but her eyes followed every move. The human took out a small stick and pressed it to the fire. It lit up, glowing with heat. Then he took a box, opened it, and began cooking something. The smell was strange but good. Kira's stomach growled. And she blushed. Looking down, he looked at her, then at the food. He broke it in half and held it out. Kira didn't move. Was this a trick? Her people always said humans gave nothing for free. But he waited patiently, the food in his hand. Slowly, Kira reached out and took it. She bit it, and warm juice ran down her throat. It was soft and salty, and tasted like safety. She nodded, trying to show thanks. The human smiled again, just a little, then ate his own piece. Hours passed. But the storm outside didn't stop. The wind still howled, shaking the cave walls. The human checked a device on his wrist again, tapping it, frowning. He said something in his own language, too fast for her to understand. But one word kept coming back: signal. He was waiting for something or someone. Maybe he wasn't alone. Maybe others were out there in the storm, or worse, maybe they weren't coming. Suddenly, he stood and walked to the mouth of the cave. He lifted a black rod from his back and pointed it outside. It shot out a red beam into the sky, a flare. The light cut through the darkness, glowing like a red star. Then it was gone, swallowed by snow. Kira didn't know what that meant. Was he trying to scare something away, or call it closer? She held Luma tighter, her heart beating fast. The human sat down again and pulled out another blanket. He handed it to her, careful not to touch her skin. His kindness confused her. Her father always said weakness was useless, that leaving her behind was mercy, not cruelty. But this human didn't see her as weak. He didn't talk down to her. He just helped, again and again. She stared at the badge on his arm. It had strange letters and a blue circle behind it. Was it from Earth? Did he work for a human group? Or was he alone like her? The fire made her sleepy, but her mind kept racing. There were still too many questions. Why was a human walking on a dead ice planet with no one else around? Why did he act like he knew someone was watching? And why did he look at her with sadness in his eyes? Outside, the storm screamed louder. Ice cracked, and snow slid from rocks. Luma growled softly, ears up. The human reached for his weapon again. Slow and careful, something was coming. Something bigger than snow and wind. Kira felt it too, deep in her bones. Not footsteps, but a pressure in the air, like the planet itself was holding its breath. The human moved to the entrance again. Standing tall, he didn't run, he didn't hide. He faced the storm like he had done it 100 times before. Kira stood slowly, afraid but curious. She stepped beside him and saw nothing in the white storm, but the feeling was still there. Something unseen, something dangerous, and whatever it was getting closer. Luma barked once, loud and sharp. The human didn't flinch, he just whispered one word. It didn't translate, but Kira felt its meaning. He was ready to fight. The storm was no longer their biggest enemy. And Kira realized something new. The human hadn't just saved her. He was protecting her from something she couldn't even see yet. And whatever it was, it would arrive soon. The storm lasted for hours, but the human didn't rest. He sat with his back against the rock wall, his weapon across his lap. Kira watched him from the corner of the cave, her blanket pulled close. She had never seen someone so still, so quiet, yet so alert. Even Luma stayed quiet, curled against her chest like a baby. Outside, the wind screamed louder, but it wasn't just the storm anymore. There were other sounds clicking, humming, almost like machines breathing. Kira had heard those sounds before. She remembered them from the night her people left. Big metal shapes had flown through the air, red lights scanning everything. They didn't speak, they just burned and destroyed. Her people called them the sweepers. She looked at the human again. He was calm, but his hands were tight around his weapon. He heard it too. He knew they were coming. When the storm finally died down, everything went quiet, too quiet, No wind, no snow. No movement, just silence, heavy and strange. The human stood up and held out his hand. He made a small gesture. "Follow me." Kira looked at Luma, then nodded. She picked up her pet and followed the man into the cold world outside. The snow was deep, almost up to her knees, but the human moved like he had walked through worse. He didn't speak, just kept moving toward the mountains. Kira didn't ask where they were going. She just knew that staying in the cave meant death. Something was watching them, something waiting. After a long walk, they reached a crack in the ice. It looked like the ground had been split open by some great force. The human climbed down first, using the cable from his suit. Then he helped her down gently, holding the rope as she climbed. Inside the crack was a hidden tunnel, dark, dry, and strangely warm. Lights glowed on the walls, blinking softly. This was not natural. Someone had made this long ago. Kira's feet touched metal, not rock. The floor below the snow was part of something bigger. She saw broken machines, fallen signs, and pipes that led deeper underground. It was an old station, maybe from a war long before her time. The human pulled out a flashlight and led the way. Each step echoed through the tunnel. Kira held Luma close, afraid of the silence. Not because it was quiet, but because it felt like something inside the walls was awake. They reached a metal door, rusted but still standing. The human pressed a button on his arm, and it slid open with a slow hiss. Inside was a large room, filled with dust, broken chairs, and empty screens. But it was warmer here and safer. Human placed his gear down, looked around, and nodded. He had been here before. This was his shelter. Maybe the place he had planned to reach all along. He walked to a control panel and connected his device. Green lights blinked, and a soft voice spoke from the wall something in human language. He answered with short words, calm and serious. Then the screens lit up, showing a map of the planet. Red dots blinked near the cave they had left behind. They were surrounded. Kira watched in silence, not understanding the language but feeling the danger. The human sat down and looked at her, his face hidden behind the helmet, but his voice came out clear and low. "We have 2 days," he said slowly. Kira didn't know what that meant, but she saw it in his eyes. 2 days until something came. Something worse than cold or hunger. She sat down beside Luma, her heart pounding. The shelter was strong, but it felt like a cage. Outside were machines, sweepers, hunters. Inside were shadows, old ghosts from a war that never ended. She looked at the human again. Why had he brought her here? Why was he risking everything for a girl he didn't know? Was she special? Or was he just that kind of man? He walked over and handed her a small box food again. Then he placed a sleeping bag near the wall and laid down, still holding his weapon. Still watching the door, Kira didn't sleep. She couldn't. The shelter felt safe, but something in her chest told her this peace wouldn't last. The sweepers were coming. The storm had been just the beginning, and whatever was waiting outside would test everything the human had, and everything she didn't even know she had. The shelter was silent except for the soft hum of old machines. Waking up after years of sleep, dust floated through the air like slow snowflakes. Untouched and forgotten, Kira sat beside her pet, watching the human as he worked at the glowing control panel. His helmet was off now, revealing his face for the first time. He had short black hair, a scar across one cheek, and eyes that looked tired but kind. He hadn't spoken much since they arrived, but every time she looked at him, he nodded gently, like he was trying to tell her she wasn't alone anymore. He typed something into the computer, and a voice replied in a strange human language. Kira didn't understand the words, but the way the man's hands moved told her everything. He was looking for someone, maybe calling for help, but no one answered. Suddenly, the screen blinked. Red. More dots had appeared on the map, closer now. They were moving fast. The sweepers were hunting, and they had picked up a trail. The human cursed softly under his breath. Kira stood slowly, unsure of what was happening. He looked at her and pointed to a smaller tunnel across the room. It led deeper underground, away from the danger. She hesitated for a moment, but then followed, carrying Luma in her arms. The tunnel walls were lined with lights that flickered. To life as they walked, everything felt old but alive, like this place remembered the war. Remembered the people who once filled these halls. After a while, they reached a small chamber. Warmer than the rest, inside was a strange device, half buried in the floor. It looked like a seat, but it glowed faintly with soft blue light. Kira stepped closer, drawn to it without knowing why. The human watched her carefully. He didn't stop her. He didn't look surprised, like he had brought her here on purpose. She reached out and touched the glowing edge. The room responded, lights flashing slowly in a rhythm like a heartbeat. Luma jumped from her arms and sat beside the machine, tail wagging like it knew something she didn't. Kira's hand began to glow where it touched the surface. Her eyes widened, but she didn't. Pull back instead. A word formed on the screen written in her language. Not his. Welcome back. Her breath caught in her throat. The human stepped forward, speaking softly. You're not just a survivor, he said. You're connected to this place. Kira didn't know how, but she felt it too. The machine wasn't just reacting to her. It remembered her. Or maybe remembered her blood, her family. Maybe her ancestors had built this place. Maybe she was the last one left who could unlock it. She looked at the human, confused and scared. He placed a hand on her shoulder and nodded. You don't need to be afraid, he said slowly. This place responds to you, not me. The truth fell on her like a quiet storm. She had always believed she was weak, left behind, forgotten. But now, the walls themselves opened for her. The lights followed her steps. The doors listened to her touch. Kira sat in the glowing seat. The machine came to life. Screens lighting up all around her. She saw maps, old video logs, and blueprints of machines with the same shape as the sweepers. This place had seen the beginning of the war, and maybe it held the secret to stopping it. The human stood back, letting her explore. He didn't push her, didn't try to take control. He just watched her with the eyes of someone who had been searching for hope for too long. And now, maybe he had found it. Luma jumped into her lap, purring softly. The screen in front of her changed again, showing a message in her language. Do you wish to restore control? She looked at the human, unsure. He gave a small nod. Yes, she whispered, her voice small but clear. She had never said no to anything before. She had always followed, always accepted, but this time she said yes. The machine accepted her command. The room vibrated with energy. The deeper systems of the shelter came online, and far away, in the cold mountains, machines paused for just a second. Something had changed, something they didn't expect. Kira didn't understand it all, but she knew one thing: she was not just a girl left behind. She was something more. And the human had seen it before even she did. He hadn't just saved her life. He had brought her to her purpose. The air inside the shelter began to change. It wasn't just warmer, it was alive. The machines deep underground had awakened. Some were silent watchers. Others were waiting for orders. And now, because of Kira, they had someone to listen to again. She stood from the glowing seat, her heart beating fast. The walls had shown her things she didn't understand, old battles, strange symbols, and words in her language from voices long dead. She wasn't sure if it was a gift or a curse. All she knew was that something terrible was coming fast. The human, now without his helmet, was checking his gear. His face was tense, eyes sharp like a soldier who had seen too many fights. He looked at the blinking red lights on his wrist device. Then he looked at Kira. They're close, he said. She didn't need a translator to understand. Even Luma felt it. His ears stood up, back arched, eyes locked on the door. The human moved quickly, sealing the main door and setting up something small and round near it. A mine, Kira guessed. She'd seen them before when her people trained to escape invasions. But this one looked different, human-made, deadly. Kira touched the wall beside her. It lit up again, showing the outside view. Dozens of sweepers were moving over the snow. crawling like black insects. Their eyes glowed red, and their long metal arms cut through anything in their way. They were not just searching anymore. They knew exactly where to go. She turned to the human, panic growing inside her, but he wasn't panicking. He was moving with purpose, placing barriers, checking weapons, setting traps. This wasn't his first fight, but it might be his last. Kira didn't want him to die. She didn't want to lose the only person who had stayed beside her. Not again, not like her people, not like her father. She walked to the center console and pressed her hand to it again. The machine asked for a command. Her voice shook, but she spoke. "Defend this place." The lights dimmed, then turned red. Hidden walls opened and released small drones round. Glowing, silent, they hovered in the air, then flew out through side tunnels into the storm. She didn't even know the shelter had weapons, but now it was hers, and it was ready to fight. The human stared for a moment, surprised. Then he smiled, just a little. "You're full of surprises," he said. The ground shook. The first seeker reached the outer doors and stopped, scanning the wall. It didn't attack yet. It was waiting for the others. They moved in packs, always hunting as one. And they never stopped. Kira stood beside the human now, not behind him. Luma jumped onto a ledge nearby, teeth bared, ready to. This wasn't just a fight to survive anymore. This was their place, their shelter, and they were going to protect it together. The human handed her something small, round, and silver. It looked like a bracelet but thicker. He helped her wear it, tightening the strap gently. "If I fall," he said quietly, "press the button in the center." She didn't want to know what it would do. She didn't want to imagine him falling. But she nodded, her throat too tight to speak. The outer doors exploded, metal flying inward like knives. The blast shook the walls, and the red lights flashed fast. Kira felt the heat of fire and the roar of machine voices screaming through the smoke, but she didn't run. Neither did he. The first seeker entered tall, spider-like, metal claws scraping the ground. The mine near the door blinked once, then exploded with a roar that filled the tunnel with fire and smoke. The seeker's legs flew in every direction. The second one came through the flames, undamaged, then a third, then 5. The human opened fire, his weapon glowing blue with each shot. The sound was deafening. Kira ducked behind a metal wall but kept her hand on the console. The shelter's drones returned from above, shooting red beams that sliced through the enemy. It was chaos. Sparks flew, smoke burned her lungs, but she stayed. One of the seekers turned toward her, its red eyes flashing. It leapt forward, claws ready to tear her apart. Kira froze. Then Luma jumped. The little creature screamed louder than anything she had ever heard. The sound hit the seeker like a wall, and it froze in midair. Its eyes flickered, then went dark. It crashed to the ground, twitching. Luma stood on top of it, growling. Kira couldn't believe what she had seen. Her pet wasn't just a pet. The human looked back and said one word. Biolink. She didn't understand, not yet, but she would. Because this fight wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about truth, and the truth was nothing about her life had ever been what it seemed. Asterisk smoke filled the hallway, thick and bitter. The shelter shook again as more seekers crashed through the outer walls. Metal hit metal, weapons fired, sparks rained down. But for one strange moment, time seemed to stop. Kira was still staring at Luma. The little creature stood on the broken seeker like a guardian. Its fur glowed faint blue, and its eyes had changed brighter, sharper. Luma didn't look afraid. It looked ready. The human took a step closer, eyes fixed on Luma. "That's not just a pet," he whispered, more to himself than to her. His voice was calm, but his face was full of questions. Kira nodded slowly, but her voice trembled. I didn't know." Behind them, another blast shook the tunnel. But the machines were slowing down. They weren't attacking blindly now. They were scanning, searching, waiting. As if something had confused them or scared them, Luma jumped off the broken body of the seeker and walked toward the shelter's core. Its paws didn't make a sound, but everywhere it stepped. The lights shifted, the walls responded, doors opened without being touched. Even the flickering consoles returned to life as it passed. Kira followed quickly, heart racing. The human stayed close, his weapon still in hand but pointed down. He was watching everything, not just with caution, but awe, like he was seeing a story written in real time. A story he didn't expect. They entered the deep chamber, the oldest part of the shelter. The air was thick with energy, humming softly like a heartbeat. Luma stopped in front of a round platform, then looked at Kira. It gave a single cry, not sad, not scared, just one clear sound. The platform lit up, and a voice filled the room. It was not human, not machine. It spoke in Kira's ancient language, slow and deep. Biosignal confirmed. Air of the core present. Genetic match detected. Activation sequence ready. Kira's legs felt weak. The human gently placed his hand on her back, steadying her. "You're connected to this place," he said. "But that thing." "Luma, it's the key." Luma stepped onto the platform and curled up at the center. The lights around it formed rings of symbols, glowing and spinning. Kira stepped beside it and reached out. As soon as her hand touched the center, the platform sank with a low hum. The walls around them changed, becoming clear like glass. And suddenly, Kira saw everything. A map of the planet, glowing with life. Old cities buried under snow. Machines sleeping beneath mountains. And in the center of it all, this shelter. This command core. She saw a memory, her people long ago. Building this place, not to hide but to protect something sacred. A bond between creature and child, one heart, one will. She saw creatures like Luma in the past, living beside children, guiding them, not pets, but partners. And then, she saw the day it ended. An invasion, fire, betrayal, the connection broken. The shelters sealed. Until now, Kira pulled her hand back. Breathing hard, she looked down at Luma, now sleeping quietly. It had been waiting through generations, through silence, waiting for her. The human's voice was quiet, but serious. "We can fight the machines," he said. "But only you can stop the command signal." Kira didn't understand. "What signal?" He pointed at the map, at a tall black tower glowing red at the edge of the mountains. "That's where the Seekers are controlled from," he said. "I thought I had to destroy it, but maybe you were meant to command it." She looked back at the console. A new message was waiting. "Do you wish to override the Seeker protocol?" Her hands shook. She had never had power before. She had only ever been left behind, ignored, forgotten. Now the machines of war were listening, waiting for her word. She turned to the human. "What if I fail?" He looked at her for a long time, then said softly, "Then we die. But if you try, we live." Outside, the storm was ending, but the final battle was just beginning. The tower waited, and Kira knew her choice would decide more than her own life. It would decide the fate of a world that had forgotten her name until now. The sky above the frozen mountains was no longer white. It had turned gray, thick, heavy, silent. A calm before something greater. Kira stood at the edge of a cliff, the tower in the distance glowing like a dark heart. It pulsed with red light, sending signals across the sky. Below it, the Seekers moved like ants, hundreds of them, crawling, watching, waiting. The human stood beside her, checking the last of his gear. His armor was scratched, his weapon humming low. He didn't speak much now. Words were no longer needed. He had chosen to follow her, not lead. And she had chosen not to run anymore. Luma walked ahead of them, its small paws lighting the path under the snow. The wind didn't touch them here. The machines didn't attack. The command from the shelter had reached their minds. And for now they held back, but they were not free. Not yet. The tower still controlled their hearts. It had been 3 hours of silent travel through ice tunnels and hidden roads. The closer they got, the heavier the air felt. Not just cold, but full of something old, something angry, like the tower itself was alive. And it knew Kira was coming when They reached the outer wall. The human placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to go alone," he said. Kira looked up at him and shook her head. "Yes," she said quietly, "I do." The door opened on its own, not from technology but from memory. It remembered her blood. It remembered the child who once sat on the command seat centuries ago, the one she descended from, and now it had returned to finish what had begun. Inside, the tower was dark, tall, and empty. Machines lined the walls, all asleep, waiting for voice or hand. At the center, a pillar of red light shot toward the sky. It flickered as she walked closer. Reacting, Kira stepped onto the platform. Luma followed her, glowing bright again. The red turned orange, then yellow. The signal was weakening, confused by her presence. It no longer knew if she was friend or enemy. She was both, and neither. A voice echoed across the tower, old and broken. "System error. Genetic override detected." Requesting command, Kira took a deep breath and placed both hands on the pillar. It burned, not her skin, but her memories. Everything inside her lit up, every moment she had ever felt unwanted, forgotten, unloved. And then she remembered. The cave, the fire, the human smile, the food he gave her without words. She remembered Luma's warmth, and the moment she chose not to die, she opened her mouth. And this time, her voice did not shake. "End it," she said. "Stop the control. Let them go." The tower screamed. Lights exploded. Machines roared to life. Alarms cried across the sky. But the signal began to collapse. Kira held on, crying now. Not from fear, but from strength. The signal was obeying. The war was ending. Far below, the Seekers froze, their red eyes dimming. Some powered down. Others simply turned and walked away into the snow, for the first time in years. The machines had no voice forcing them forward. They were free. The human rushed into the tower just as the pillar dimmed to black. He caught Kira as she collapsed into his arms. Luma curled beside them, purring softly. Outside, the sky cracked open with light. Sunshine, real sunshine. It had broken through the clouds. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, maybe years, Kira opened her eyes slowly. The human smiled. "You did it," he said. She smiled back, weak but sure. "No," she whispered, "we did." They walked out of the tower together. Kira, the girl who was left to die. Luma, the creature who was more than a pet, and the human who had no name, but gave her everything: food, warmth, and the courage to live. In the distance, the machines were gone. And for the first time, the world was quiet without fear. It was not just survival anymore. It was a beginning, and Kira knew she would never be forgotten again.